For the first time in weeks, the guns along the Thailand-Cambodia border have fallen silent. After nearly 20 days of some of the worst fighting either country has seen in decades, Bangkok and Phnom Penh have signed a new ceasefire agreement to halt intense cross-border clashes. The truce, agreed on Saturday, took effect at noon local time, that is 0500 GMT, with both sides formally committing to stop further military escalation and freeze their troops in place. Under the deal, defense ministers from both countries have agreed that there will be no more troop movements, no fresh reinforcements, and no attempts to change positions on the ground. Officials on both sides warned that any reinforcement, even under the guise of rotation or resupply, would immediately heighten tensions and threaten long-term efforts to resolve the conflict. The agreement was signed by Thailand's defense minister Natthaphon Nakrphanit and his Cambodian counterpart Seiha, after days of indirect talks and mounting international concern. It comes at the end of a brutal 20-day stretch of fighting that killed at least 101 people and displaced more than 500,000 civilians on both sides of the border. Families fled frontline villages, crowding into temporary shelters, schools, and pagodas as artillery shells and rockets landed around them. This latest round of violence began in early December after the collapse of a previous ceasefire that had been brokered back in July with help from US President Donald Trump. When that earlier truce unraveled, both armies moved quickly, and what started as sporadic exchanges escalated into some of the heaviest clashes in years. Recent battles saw the use of fighter jets, sustained artillery barrages, and rocket fire along the frontier, a serious escalation from the small arms skirmishes that have flared there in the past. Analysts say the intensity of the fighting and the number of casualties underline just how fragile the situation along this disputed border really is. The immediate priorities under the new ceasefire are clear: prevent any further escalation and ease the humanitarian crisis created by weeks of violence. The agreement allows civilians to start returning to their homes, in theory reversing the mass displacement that has emptied villages across the front line. As a confidence-building step, the deal also includes provisions for the conditional return of detained soldiers during an initial 72-hour period. That swap is meant to signal that both sides are serious about cooling the situation, at least for now. But there are already questions about how durable this truce will be. So far, no detailed monitoring mechanism has been announced. There's no clear third-party observer, no joint patrol system, and no long-term timeline for demilitarization. Without those safeguards, diplomats and border residents alike worry that a single incident or even a misunderstanding could send both armies back into combat. To understand why this keeps happening, you have to look at the deeper history behind the conflict. The violence stems from a decades-old border dispute rooted in colonial-era maps and competing territorial claims. At the heart of it lies a rugged stretch of land along the Dangrek mountain range and several ancient Khmer temple sites that straddle the modern frontier. One of the key flashpoints is Preah Vihear Temple, an ancient Khmer sanctuary perched on a cliff near the border. In 1962, the International Court of Justice ruled that the temple itself belonged to Cambodia, but the ruling left surrounding areas and the exact borderline ambiguous, feeding nationalist narratives on both sides and turning the region into a recurring source of friction. Over the years, even small moves near Preah Vihear, a new road, a military post, a flag, or a tourist facility, have triggered protests, political backlash, and sometimes armed clashes. Today's ceasefire doesn't solve any of those underlying issues. It doesn't redraw the border, it doesn't settle competing land claims, and it doesn't remove nationalist pressure within either country's domestic politics. What it does do is buy time. Time to calm the guns, time to move civilians out of harm's way, and time for diplomats and negotiators to try once again to turn a fragile truce into something more lasting. Whether this agreement holds or collapses like the last one will depend on what happens in the next few days. Do commanders on the ground respect the freeze on troop movements? Do politicians resist the urge to score points with tough rhetoric and symbolic gestures at the border? And do both sides finally accept that without a clear, mutually agreed border settlement, they're likely to be right back here with artillery firing and civilians running all over again? For now, after nearly 3 weeks of deadly exchanges, the ceasefire has given people along the Thailand-Cambodia border something they haven't had in days: a cautious, uneasy, but very welcome